right? I love this last part because then I get to say, I would really like you to acknowledge the wonderful changes that are happening, that I'm doing. So this is your homework, my friends. You're looking at this because I'm inviting you to do a deep dive into NVC, into nonviolent communication. Sometimes we need a little help from our friends. It is so beautiful and wonderful to be with you. And here we are. Today is a brand new day. We can make this day whatever we choose right now, in this moment. We can wipe the slate clean and step into radical renewal. Radical renewal. Now, I know I'm excited, but did you know the staff and the teams are really excited as well? We're excited because we believe transformation is possible through the power of spirit. We believe radical renewal is possible by the awakening consciousness to our true state, the state of divinity. Did you hear me? Your true state is the state of divinity. And we believe that through mindful practices, we can learn new ways to be in fulfilling relationships with each other. What? Fulfilling relationships. What? Fulfilling relationships. And one of the tools that we are going to use this season is called NVC, or nonviolent communication. We chose this tool because it really allows us to engage in respect and compassion with others. Now, you may be aware of the book. It is written by Marshall Rosenberg, PhD. How many of you have read this book before? A few hands, okay. He's also got a couple of other books that are out there based on this topic as well. But this book is going to be our primer for the next 6 weeks. And yes, it is in the bookstore. There's a plug. Okay. You're welcome, Melissa. Now, even if you've done this work in the past and you go, oh my God, are they really going to do NVC again? Yes, we're doing it again. But here's the reason why. We're hoping that this time there is an embodiment that happens with this work, right? Moving from the intellectual theory of what NVC is and what it means, to really being the outpicturing of compassionate communication. Now, I can tell you, I've taken a full semester of this class, I've been in workshops with it, I've taught workshops on it, and I still can find ways that I can improve on, right? So we're hoping that we are going to move from the head to the heart. That's our movement this season. And we are offering you support to experience it and practice this new language, right? We call it the language of kindness, or the giraffe language, and I'll go into some details about why that is. And we're going to move from the intellectual way that we communicate with each other, which is often violent and a cut off and separation, to moving into communing from the heart, seeing the divine in each other and acting from that place. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we could all do that every day of our lives? I know it would be for me. So what is nonviolent communication? What are they trying to do here? It's an integration of 4 areas: consciousness, language, communication skills, and a means of influence. So when we talk about consciousness, we say it so often in unity. Everyone is of God. Everyone is divine, right? So using that as the foundation. And then looking at languaging that we use, being aware that there are words that we can use to connect or words that we can use to separate. And then learning this new language, this new way to communicate that allows us to ask for our needs to be met, to be able to listen in love with others, even if we don't agree? And then how do we move forward in a solution? And then lastly, when we talk about influence, we are changing from trying to control others to do what we want them to do to sharing power with others. Sharing power with others. Now, Rosenberg first got involved in this back in Detroit, where he saw people targeted with violence based on race and religion. And it brought this question to mind for him. What is it that makes people want to harm each other? What is it? And here's his response. For example, one basic concept in NVC that everything we do is in service of our needs. Everything we do is in service to our needs. When this one concept is applied to our view of others, we'll see that we have no real enemies. No one's trying to get us. That what others do to us is the best possible thing they know how to do. Why? To get their needs met. Now, for the past year, I've been asking you to be in the question of your beliefs, to question your beliefs around who are you, right? Your beliefs about relationships, your beliefs about religion, your beliefs about societal expectations, and then your own perceptions. Why do I do that? Why am I calling you to do that? Because what we believe colors what we see. And when we interact with each other, it colors what we hear people say. And this plays out large and small. So I'll give you an example. Recently, I used the word topsy-turvy. That's kind of like a British colloquial. We use it quite a bit. And I was using this in reference to a friend of mine who was sharing that they are really concerned and afraid of legislation that could be coming that would null and make their marriage void. And my response was, it's a topsy-turvy world, and I'm with you. However, this person heard this as my minimizing their feelings around it. And I quickly responded to them and said, no, that wasn't my intention. I stand with you, right? Now, I didn't go into my small self and my ego and say, child, how do you not know I'm not with you? How do you not know that, right? Because if I did that, that would have just exacerbated the situation. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to know I was with them. They were in pain. And so I honored that pain. And I realized, guess whose responsibility it was to deal with my own feelings of, like, hurt. How do you not know that about me, right? It was my responsibility to manage my own feelings, to bring peace to myself, right? And all of that starts with my own mindset. And here's the thing, topsy-turvy, if we use it as an adjective or as an adverb, it can mean, upside down, and it has like a light connotation to it. But if you use it in the way of a noun, it becomes a state of utter confusion. And so for me, that's how I was using that word, right? But just that phrase, notice how someone can feel either embraced or dismissed. So here's the thing, truly realizing that my own feelings are my responsibility. Your own feelings are your responsibility. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. Imagine really getting, no one's out to get you. No one's out to hurt you. And that there really aren't evil people filled with hatred, right? Even though people's behaviors can be ugly, unkind, and hateful, especially when they are operating from a place of unmet needs and fears, right? Are you seeing the difference there? So I want you to think of NVC as a spiritual practice that uses language and compassion for the well-being of ourselves and others. NVC allows us to be in service to others without an agenda, without requiring reciprocity, without fear, without guilt. We are being in service to others because it's a natural state of who we are. It's a natural state of our divine knowing. Now, you may be saying, well, if that's the case, why is there so much violence? Why are we behaving with such distrust and disrespect to each other? Well, according to Rosenberg, he says this: we have been educated to be violent with each other since the beginning of civilization. We have been educated in a way that makes violence enjoyable. Turn on any football game, soccer game, basketball game, right? Any kind of drama where there's a hero that's, what do? They vanquish the evil, usually by beating the crap out of them, right? Okay. And this kind of education gets us disconnected from our compassionate nature. Myths about human nature that framed humans as basically evil and selfish, and that the good life is heroic forces crushing evil forces. We've been living under this destructive mythology for a long time, and it comes complete with the language that dehumanizes people and turns them into objects. That's pretty powerful. And here we are, as a society, we are really on the biggest resurgence of moralistic judgments perpetrated on each other in our history. We sit in these man-made constructs of right, wrong, good, bad, evil, saint. And then we create these punish and reward systems that say if you do bad things, not only did you do bad things, but you are the bad thing. And then you've got to pay for your crime and be punished. And once we put that label on an individual, we no longer see them as divine human beings. They become subhuman, worth less, unworthy of our love and respect. We close our eyes to the inhumane treatment they receive because we've decided that they don't really matter. So I want you to imagine for a moment. Take a breath and imagine there's this main group that has labeled you unworthy and undeserving. Perhaps they make you wear a big U on your blouse or your dress or your jacket so that wherever you go, people can see that letter and go, oh, this person's undeserving. This person's unimportant. And then you're being watched wherever you go, marginalized and shunned. What does that feel like? What are the emotions that come up? I can't hear. Sad. Angry. What? Crummy, yes. Yes, crummy. Distrust, huge. Oppressed. Good. And just because somebody has labeled you unworthy. For many who are labeled as bad or subhuman, there are feelings of despair and lives lived without hope. Can you imagine living your life without hope, without possibility? And see, the act of labeling anyone as less than is an act of violence. It's an act of separation, which is a lie. Which is a lie. Nonviolent communication, it asks us to reclaim truth, that there is only oneness. NVC is a tool that allows us to use it every day in our lives to be in compassion, in engagement, in authenticity with each other. NVC gives us the framework that reminds us all judgments are an expression of unmet needs. All judgments are an expression of unmet needs. So if you don't hear anything else, it's just blah, 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 blah. Walk away with this. Put that in the back of your brain that every time that you go into judgment, it's an unmet need. Because there's the work. What is the unmet need that you have? Rosenberg says this: any words we use that imply wrongness of others are tragic, suicidal expressions of what's alive in us. They're tragic and suicidal because they don't lead people to enjoying and contributing to our well-being. They provoke defensiveness and counter-aggressions. Ever been told you were wrong? I know I have. When that comes at you, what do you feel? Do you feel like, oh, I just love you and I so want to engage with you? No, right? What do you feel? Get away from me. What else do you feel? Defensive. Yes. What else? Insecure. Fear. Yes. And so then we walk around with these walls, right? Trying to protect ourselves from the hurt. I know I've been guilty of that. Here's what we need to be aware of: that diagnosing people leads to self-fulfilling prophecies. If we label someone a monster, they become the monster. We know this fundamentally in unity, do we not? We know that whatever we focus on, what happens to it? Increases, right? We're putting our energy there. It's increasing. We know this. So how do we do this work? One of the practices that will support us in doing the nonviolent communication is called heart coherence. How many of you have heard of heart coherence or the Heart Math Institute? Yes. And they suggest getting into a heart coherent state to support us in alignment to our truth, harmony, and connection to others and to our environment. And basically, it's a really short exercise. It's a breathing exercise, and we're going to do some of this when we go into meditation today. But basically, it's about seeing the energy of either the heart chakra or the heart itself, and that you're breathing slowly in and through that. Inhale and exhaling through your heart or your heart energy center. And then you find something that you feel appreciative to, which then bubbles up into this sense of gratitude, and then that radiates, and that shifts us entirely. And then we breathe into the knowing and affirming our intention of mind and heart being connected. We walk around here completely connected from our bodies, disconnected from our souls, completely in our heads. And that is the language of violence, my friends. So, we're going to practice that in our meditation. Each of you should have also received a little sheet of dissolving paper, so we're going to do some work with that as well during meditation. And so what I want to go to next is really talking about the language of the giraffe, right? The language of the giraffe. That beauty. It's a way to counter our normal language of the jackal, right? Rosenberg has used those two analogies. What we normally speak is jackal language, violent language. It's a cut-off language. It's from our head. And the giraffe language is a compassionate, loving energy. So the Jackal language, we talk about, violence is enjoyable, right? It's a language of demands and moralistic judgments. Who's right? Who's wrong? It's an evaluation of others. If we're looking at someone and judging them wrong, we're in the jackal head. And if we're doing that, we have an unmet need. So what we're trying to do here is moving from violent interactions with each other to loving interactions with each other. And what this means is moving from a power over situation to a power with. And here's what Rosenberg says about power with. Power with is getting people to do things willingly because they see it's going to enrich everybody's well-being by doing it. That's nonviolent communication. One of the most powerful ways we've found of creating power with people is the degree to which we show them we are just as interested in their needs as our own. And he's picked the giraffe. Look at those beauties. Why? What do you see there when you look at them? Tall, long necks, right? So they have a higher perspective. They're real gentle giants. And so we're looking at the giraffe language as a way for us to communicate as requests, not demands. Okay, how does a jackal speak? You make me so mad. You're always blaming me. I can't trust you anymore, right? Violent. I'm making you responsible for my feelings. I'm cutting us off. Where the giraffe language, we have responsibility. We're saying what we're feeling, we're saying what we need. We're making our requests clear. We're making sure that the words coming out of our mouth are not judgments or making that other person wrong, right? And we do everything in a way that is compassionate and trusting. So here's our phrasing when we're learning this. When you blank, I feel blank because I'm needing blank. I would like you to blank. Now, let's change that a little bit. I always get myself in trouble, I tell you. All right. So the when you is looking as an observer, looking from a higher perspective, right? Not putting your interpretation on it. So looking at when you tell me I failed to do things correctly, right? That's objective, right? That's exactly what was said. I feel, now we're in the feelings. It could be I feel discouraged, I feel resentment, I feel disheartened. Because I'm needing, what's the unmet need for me? I want to be acknowledged. I want to be appreciated, right? I want to feel your enthusiasm about what I'm doing. And I learned that piece when I was in my early days of therapy because I couldn't figure out words to say to people that I needed something. My needs were always not allowed in my family of choice, not family of choice, my family of origin, right? It wasn't allowed. So now I needed a framework of how to tell people what I needed. And then it would lie there, but then sometimes people wouldn't know what to do, right? Maybe their thought would be, okay, well, maybe I'll just send her a card or here's a flower. But what if that's not what you need, right? I love this last part because then I get to say, I would really like you to acknowledge the wonderful changes that are happening, that I'm doing. So this is your homework, my friends. You're looking at this. If you haven't snapped the picture, snap now. This is the homework for this week. Because I'm inviting you to do a deep dive into NVC, into nonviolent communication. I'm inviting you to practice, to get it wrong, to realize, oh, well, that sounds like a judgment. Okay, let me figure out another way to come at this, right? You know, growing up in the Northeast, I can tell you that Jackal language was the language of success with a side order of sarcasm. So I really learned that. I was conditioned that sarcasm meant that I was intellectual and I was clever. And when Graham and I first got married, I realized we weren't doing so well in that area, you know, and he asked for a covenant in our relationship. Could we agree to not use sarcasm with each other? And I thought, who is this man? And I agreed to that covenant. And I can tell you, Graham does it magnificently. Me, not so much. I've got work I'm still doing. I still catch myself, you know? But it's an opportunity for me to self-correct. And I'm telling you, I am the perfect model for you can teach an old dog new tricks. All right? So if I can do it, you can do it. All right, so you know what you've got to do this week for homework? And then next week, what we're going to talk about are those triggers that happen that we do that wild reaction to. Is there a way to work around that? I say yes. So come back next week.